This episode is brought to you by TaxAct. Don't do your taxes alone. Join TaxAct's National Admin Night. Admin nights are social gatherings for getting through your to-do list. So get ready for a night of fun, finding deductions, and filing taxes with TaxAct, where you can file your federal and state return for just $49 through April 8. Let's get together and get them over with. Visit taxact.com/admin-night for details.
Welcome to The Secret Life of Cookies, where we try to solve the world's problems through the miracle of carbohydrates, one recipe at a time, with host Marissa Rothkopf and her dog, Bosco.
Hello there, and welcome to this week's Secret Life of Cookies. Thank you all for being here. This week was special because my guest was Harry Litman, host of the Talking Feds podcast, lawyer, pundit, former U.S. attorney, and DOJ official. And it follows that an overachiever like that would want to make, yes, soufflés. So we did, step by step. He helped me understand the law of the land, and I taught him the law of the soufflé. And yes, the worry is that either could collapse at any moment. On with the show. Hello to Mr. Harry Litman. Thank you so much for joining me today on The Secret Life of Cookies. I want everyone who doesn't know who you are to know that you are the host of the Talking Feds podcast. You teach constitutional law. You write regular, brilliant pieces for the Los Angeles Times, which almost made me want to pay to break the paywall for them when I can't get past them.
So
No.
yeah.
And you're a regular contributor, play a lawyer on TV as well. So I think what people need to know is lawyers by their nature seem to me, I've spent a lot of time with them, quite overachievers, the best ones like you. And I think you get the award for asking for the most overachievery dessert, which
No
is...
kidding.
Yes, you get it.
You have all these unimaginative lawyer guests?
I don't want Elliot Williams to hear this and think that he's unimaginative. He does beautiful cakes. Ellie Honeck and I did beautiful things together as well. And of course, Joyce Vance is a genius when it comes to the kitchen. But you asked to make the dessert that everyone's afraid to make, which is soufflés. So are you fearless, or is it just
I'll tell you, I know it was very practical. I was eager to do this because it seemed fun and I actually wanted to learn. And I'm, Sunday baker, no Joyce Vance levels, but I have a couple kids who love fruit pies, which I'll make, and then, and one who hates it. And one who doesn't like chocolate, and one who loves pecan pies, and the other's allergic. So I was actually looking for they all like, I was just looking for a down the middle, interesting dessert that they could all eat. And that's how we came. And I've tried chocolate souffle, which is awesome when it works. But I have one who's not a big chocolate fan. So that's how I stumbled on raspberry souffle. It's kind of like, that's like the Prince song now that I think about it.
It's exactly like the Prince song.
Or the raspberry Okay.
So this is a multi-step process, but each step is very easy. People are terrified of making soufflés because they're like, it's going to fall. It's not going to rise in time.
Yeah.
There are three things that you need to master. The two most important ones are making sure you whip your egg whites properly. We'll talk about that. And the second is timing. I don't think I would have a dinner party where it was like, okay, we're going to have dinner. And then 35 seconds later, we're going to have dessert.
Right.
Have people over for souffle, or make them all gather in the kitchen so that they're ready for the souffle.
I mean, at restaurants, right? When you order it, they'll say, well, it's going to take an extra half hour, but that's a nice, when people are for dinner, that's a nice kind of juncture when you can just sit around and talk and wait for the souffle.
Exactly. And if it falls, you just dump vanilla ice cream on it.
Exactly.
Really. I mean, come on. Everyone's going to feel your pain if it falls. That's the great thing about a souffle. No one's expecting you to be Jacques Pepin. I'm sure his soufflés have fallen. We'll have to ask him.
Sure.
Anyway,
Same with Michael Jordan. Okay. Should I preheat the oven?
Yes, you should. That is a very key point. we're going to start the oven at 400. And then the minute the souffle goes in, we take it down to 375.
Okay. And let me ask you this. This comes up a lot. So I have an oven that I can do on convection bake and on regular. And I'm told convection bake is kind of the equivalent of 25 degrees more. Is that true?
That is true. And in the case of something with egg whites, you don't want convection because it literally will blow your egg whites as they are.
Okay,
rising.
so I should go put it not on convection bake at 400. And is that a general rule of thumb for baking, would you say?
Yep.
Well, don't do convection. Okay.
Don't do convection for things like egg whites. And I find that convection is really nice for things like roasts. I am not a big fan of it for baking.
For baking, period, a pie or whatever. Okay. Good to know.
Mostly because I think in restaurants, the convection is okay. Even my delightful Wolf stove, I think, tends to brown things more on one side, and you have to spend all your time turning it. You don't want that.
Yeah, rotating it. Okay.
Which is something people really should do. Speaking of rotating, I'd like to rotate out some Supreme Court justices.
Mm-hmm. What do you have in mind? It's funny you say that because I shouldn't preempt you, but that's all this sort of sturm und drang. So not just the situation where you have this lopsided, this complete bad luck of the draw that Republicans have, lost the popular vote 7 of 9 times, but they totally have a monolithic control in the court just because of happenstance, but also the incredible blood battles that most nominations have turned into would both be arguably solved by rotating out. That is, there are proposals there that are, seriously contemplated that instead of having life tenure, which is in the Constitution, they serve, say, 18-year terms, and maybe every president have 2 appointments, and it would just, make the stakes seem so less titanic and existential. And so you wouldn't have had, arguably, the Merrick Garland or the Brett Kavanaugh kind of fights to the death.
I think that's a fantastic idea. Let's get you making your puree while I ask you this other question. I throw you a bit of a softball while you're making your raspberry puree.
Okay. Just give me the instructions, and you can throw me hard balls too. But just so what?
Okay.
So what?
So you have a bag of defrosted raspberries, correct?
So I do. On a plate, of course, because you emphasize I don't want to make a big mess in the refrigerator. And it's 10 ounces as specified.
10 ounces as specified. If you only did half of them, that'd be fine, because you're really only going to need 4 ounces for this.
Yes.
Do you have something like a mesh sieve that you can smush them through?
Yes. Well, I actually thought for that, I do a mesh sieve, but I have a sort of smaller, meshier thing like that might be better.
Perfect. Okay. Just put that over a bowl and get yourself a spoon. Let's make this easy for you.
All right.
Beautiful. Everybody, he is now pouring his raspberries into
pour all 10 ounces into aforementioned sieve.
Aforementioned sieve. Yes, that did not leak all over his refrigerator last night. Delicious. A great smell.
They really, and that's honestly, I don't want to get too pound-like, but that's a beautiful color. It really is. Okay.
It is.
You want me to start smushing now with the back of the spoon? Is that the notion?
I would like you. That's exactly right. You don't want the seeds in because it'll tend to make things bitter, and you just want to keep smooshing and smooshing, which is not the technical term. And occasionally you go underneath the sieve and you scrape what's sort of hanging around there.
Okay. I think I'm ready to field questions as I smush. What is the technical term?
Sieving. I think really. We'll just say sieving.
All right. So you want to go back to the court now?
Let's go back to the court, because was the original idea behind having a life appointment on the Supreme Court?
Big and important idea. It's independence. So, if it's a short term, and let's say there were reappointments, then the jobs, you could be beholden on the political actors, and you might want to, it comes up a little bit in state courts with elected judges where you certainly have cause for concern that they're calling things not true, but according to politics, say in criminal cases, et cetera. So you really want, once they go into the court, that they be indifferent, perfectly indifferent to political actors. And that's the idea of what, and they actually, it's interesting because the provision, like a lot of, constitutional provisions, reveal a kind of concern that we wouldn't have today. There are two things, two guarantees: life tenure, and the compensation can't be diminished during good behavior. So I guess there was an actual worry that the way, if we had another King George III or whatever, okay, they would have a clever way. You can stay there, but Congress is changing your salary to a farthing a year or whatever. But they're both ways to ensure independence and absence of any kind of personal motivation or bias on the part of the justices. Now, that's why the proposal has a single term. So, it's as soon as you get in, you are out in 18 years. And then presumably there's nothing, you don't have to worry that anything about how you rule would in fact affect, say, your chances of reappointment. On the other hand, you're a young person, you go in, it's 17 years later, you want to get a good job when you come out. Does that at all affect things? The number one thing is, in each and every case, you want to be calling it completely independent of any self-interest. And by the way, that's a guarantee, constitutional guarantee for not just the Supreme Court, but all federal courts.
Then why do we feel that it seems so biased and politically so many decisions seem politically motivated now? She said innocently.
Yeah. Whatever do you mean? So let's see, because they go in, it's a little bit quaint to think that they have more interest. Well, first of all, we think that the process is such that presidents really sift through available people to find reliable voices. So Donald Trump actually said, it's stunning. Anyone else would have denied it, even if they had done it, that I'm going to put on people who will overrule Roe v. Wade. And he did kind of, I think it's fair to say, I'm not questioning the general chops of his three appointees, but it was turned over to the Federalist Society. They have strong political views. So it's arguable that, I can say this is a fact for Justices Kavanaugh and Gorsuch, whom I know, they both clerked for Kennedy, as did I. They did come up through a kind of Federalist Society culture that was reacting to a monolithic, overly, I'd say even sort of, arrogant kind of liberal culture. And they had this sort of identity as conservatives. That would be the soft way to put it. But the idea is that you can find people who are going to be, on the home team after you put them in, even if they're being completely honest. I'm not talking about, and then you could also argue that in addition, you could have people on who are for the home team more politically, like Democrats and Republicans. And before things went berserk with Supreme Court appointees, and say, there would be different arguments about this, but let's say the Judge Bork hearings in the mid 80s, the record of, and when the filibuster was still in place, and when just culturally the court didn't occupy such a huge role in America, so that we looked for every major dispute to be settled by them. Before then, you really did have basically a bipartisan tradition of just choosing really competent people. You got, more or less judicial conservatives or whatever, but if you go back to the choices of, Eisenhower picks Warren and Brennan, or guys like Brandeis or Frankfurt or Justice Jackson, there was a strong political culture to just choose the best person. As the court's role has grown, so has the sophistication of this. There's no doubt. The Republicans started it, but the Democrats do it. The sophistication of trying to both groom and then choose people who will be reliable votes, not necessarily because they're corrupt, but it's because it's who they are, becomes paramount. I mean, look, I know some of these justices, I kind of came of age with them. My objection to the current Supreme Court is that it's bad for the court and bad for the country. You have people who self-identify as a matter of legal culture in this very, maybe 10%, 5% of a kind of conservative cadre at the very end of the spectrum. And that means they don't have to reason with others. They don't have to compromise. And that there's going to be a decent percentage of their decisions, including in very important cases, that the majority of the legal profession will disagree with, majority of the American public will disagree with, because they very strongly, they're in this sort of silo that is quite conservative. I think and hope I would say that that's bad, even if it were all libs, like maybe the Warren Court and the social impact it had, even though I'm more liberal than they are. But the main thing is it's being monolithic. It's just bad for the court and bad for the country. And it's a product not of very serious scrutinizing to find people who are solidly in that narrow, proud camp. That's how we now have what I think ills the country, not just the court.
Do you think there's a hope in heck that there could be a movement to actually affect change in how the Supreme Court tenure runs?
No.
I mean, no. Okay.
I could see it, but that's the short answer. I just don't think it'll. Yeah.
It makes such lovely sense, and I really began to feel.
It is it's a sort of political science problem, because it's kind of like at any given time, and maybe in one party's interest more than the other, and the other party will always be saying, "Oh, we can't change the constitution." They'll be making these brave arguments about constitutional change. Boy, it smells so good. I mean, can I try to show it to you? I don't know how to measure if it's. Do you have a glass? Still a little bit cup? Wet in the sieve, but definitely a lot's now down below.
Do you have a glass measuring cup?
Yeah.
Just pour it into your Pyrex. It'll have a 4-ounce measure on it.
Yeah. Okay. Hold on.
Guys, he's doing a very, very precise job scraping the bottom of his sieve, as you might gather from a accomplished.
Well, because lawyer. I'm such a precise, nerdy, anal lawyer. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah. Well, basically, that's what I.
Okay. Whatever. I mean. A cup is 8 ounces? No, or that's actually an important thing, the difference between liquid and solid, huh?
Yeah.
Because I do have that classic Pyrex. My mother had it, 2-cup thing, but I'm not sure I'm finding it. Is this going to do the trick or not?
That's a cup. So why don't you fill that up about halfway?
Yes, but that's a cup for I don't know if we'd even call this liquid or solid. So okay, let me try that.
I would call it liquid, and I'm going to do a little home test here. And we have the same silver cups, and I'm going to pour it in and see how far it comes up. And indeed, it's about halfway.
Yeah, but you're probably a much better smusher than I am. So let's just see.
But I also am not making a raspberry souffle, because I was going to make a blueberry one and defrosted these beautiful blueberries from New Jersey, because New Jersey blueberries are the best. I mean.
They really are, but let me ask you, because this will sound more sophisticated than I am, but I do know that there are people, including Bittman, who say when you make a blueberry baked thing, use frozen; they're better.
Yeah, and these were frozen blueberries.
Oh, I see. So what are you bragging about New Jersey fresh blueberries for?
They taste, because I'm from Jersey, and Jersey blueberries are great. And
they're just frozen. I can get Jersey blueberries frozen.
You can. The problem was I put them in my fridge and told everyone not to eat them, and my husband ate half of them. That was the problem. So this morning,
boy, do I know that problem. I have 3 teenagers. Okay, I think I am looking at half a cup, just about exactly. Do you want to see, or?
I believe you.
Okay.
Pour it into a larger bowl. I have it in a bowl like this.
Well, why don't I pour it back into the smush bowl, which just has a little, that's what I'll do.
Beautiful. That's exactly the right thing to do. Do you have a lemon handy?
I do.
I'm going to teach you a little trick with the lemon.
With the lemon?
Yep.
Oh, that'll be fun. Okay.
It's a little lemon trick. Who doesn't
I want
want
to
a lemon
learn this trick, but let me tell you what else I have handy.
Oh, you have this smusherator. That's great. But I want you
But I'd still like to learn a trick, or is this what? But I do have it.
That's great. Yeah. That's going to come in handy. But I'd like you to measure your third of a cup of sugar that's needed for this into a small bowl, and then zest your lemon peel over that.
Well, and the sugar. Small bowl should be a separate bowl?
Yeah, just for this portion of it. Now, Mr. Litman here, Esquire, is using coconut sugar instead of evil white sugar, which is what I'm using. And we're going to see, it's going to be a test to see how it comes out. It will affect the color, but since he has a deep raspberry color going into his souffle, I don't think it'll be too bad. I'm making a cara orange souffle, meaning the pink oranges and the 3 or 4 blueberries that were left by my husband. So my souffle, when it comes out, ends up looking really, let's be honest, a sort of ugly, old silly putty color, which not the most attractive color, but with some confectioner sugar, maybe a pretty garnish, maybe even make like a sauce, or as we like to call them in the 80s, a coulis.
Okay, so I just want to say I had a choice here.
Yeah.
I really shouldn't be boastful about California, but I decided just to use a grocery one rather than the one that when we were low on a lemon, I walk out the door and go on the lemon tree, but it's very seedy. Okay, so you want me to do this? You want me to zest it directly into on top of the sugar?
Directly onto the sugar.
And for zesting, would you use this one or that one?
I'm going to use the wider one there,
okay.
Because that one.
And just about the whole lemon?
Yeah, just about the yellow part of the skin. Don't use the white part. That's the evil, bitter pith. So
isn't that a good word?
Yeah, pith. I was wondering if you said bitter, because I've spent a lot of time over the past 6 or 7 years being really bitter. Anyway.
Oh.
No, it's all right. So you put the.
Are you at all Jewish? No, I'm serious. I didn't mean it that way, but Passover's coming up, and that's this whole like theme, bitter herbs and how bitter we were, but then we got all Cory Booker-ish.
Exactly. That was the most wonderful speech, and that's what one of my questions for you,
wasn't it? I was on TV, like literally watching live, and had to talk right after, and I was like a little verklempt or whatever.
Verklempt.
All right.
I knew you were going to say.
So that's enough, right?
Beautiful.
Not the very correct.
No, that's great. Now take your fork, your fingers, something. I would use a fork or spoon, and mix that lemon zest into the sugar. If you guys learn one thing from this podcast today, aside from don't be afraid of souffle, mixing the lemon zest into the sugar. Julia Child used to do it. She would mix it up with a Cuisinart. Even just doing it this way, you're going to infuse those oils from the lemon zest into the sugar. And it's going to make the lemon taste, or in my case, the orange taste, just burst forth.
Oh, that's so great. Hey, did you see the Julia Child movie by Julie Cohen?
Not yet, no.
It's great. I'm mixed in. The oils are really, as we speak, just kind of shooting out. Okay.
Everywhere. You need to separate your eggs. You need to separate 4 eggs.
This is step number 1 for fear and loathing in the kitchen, right?
It is, but there are a few tricks.
I have found, again, I'm really not much of a baker or cook, just a Sunday one, but I have found a certain mindset being really important now of fearlessness or pretending you can't screw it up. And just because otherwise you get too light on that hit of the egg, and then you get too heavy. You just have to almost pretend you're doing something else, and this is just in the background.
Yes, like my dog who's barking in the background. The other secret, and I'm not going to make you do it now, is to do it over a third bowl. So if you do get any yolk in, It doesn't ruin your whites. And in the case of this dish, you really want your whites to be pure as the driven. Yeah. Last week we had Ketanji Brown. And how do you feel like it all went, aside from like the evil shenanigans of people like Ted Cruz, who I'd like to talk about later in this podcast, even though, but once the souffle is safely in the oven and it won't curdle. If he hears the name Ted Cruz.
But nothing is ever safely in the oven where Ted Cruz is concerned. Well, look, so a couple things. She did splendidly, and she's going to be confirmed. And she was especially, the story was, in fact, how she handled Cruz and Hawley and Cotton and even Blackburn, who, put in their bid to get, red meat slogan for politics. I'll say that in terms of the problem we've been discussing, Marissa, another aspect of it is very unilluminating confirmation hearings, because the candidates have every incentive to be bland and milquetoast and give tried and true answers. And I thought she did excellently in the overall, by the rules of the game, but she played them extremely conservative. So even some things that previous candidates have had no trouble answering, like who's your favorite justice, or tell us something about your judicial philosophy, even those, and she thought about them in advance, she decided to finesse and be uninformative about. So that told you something. But basically, she was fine. And, they I think, dishonestly compared the proceedings to Kavanaugh and wanted to suggest that they were nice, where Dems had been mean to Kavanaugh. And I found that ridiculous and galling, because the Kavanaugh, hearings, they were nasty, but they were, had to do with trying to get to the bottom of nasty accusations that, in fact, Republicans and White House together maneuvered to keep anyone from getting to the bottom. Whereas the things that she had to field had essentially nothing to do with her qualifications to be on the court, and were knowingly deceptive besides. For instance, most prominently, the sentencing of child sex offenders, which she and just about everyone in the judiciary does below the guidelines, because the guidelines were written for a time when people, furtively acquired a picture at a time. And now you push a button and numbers is just not the right. If you apply them faithfully now, people who spend 10 seconds acquiring photos are looking at, 20 years in prison. So that's just a problem that the judiciary is sensitive to, the Sentencing Commission is sensitive to, and Cruz certainly knows that, and Hawley. So that, and then the other things, like, she's on the board of a school that teaches this book, and What is a Woman, were risible. Right, and just so, but anyway, on all that stuff, which was the most challenging, I've prepared people for nomination for confirmations. It's not, you gotta, she, I thought, did a very good job and kind of came into her own sort of midway through the hearing of pushing back ever so slightly and ever so, and appropriately from the, and kind of schooling them, because their questions were, had they been sincere, which they weren't, were so ignorant, but holding it together, not showing, showing only the slightest impatience. That was the most important, given what jerks they were. And in that sense, she did well. I would much prefer Judiciary Committee hearings where there'd be an honest exploration of a candidate's judicial philosophy, and where you wouldn't have to, say, pretend like you have no views on anything and you're starting from scratch. But, the political actors know that we tried that. They tried that with Bork, which in some ways was a perfect here, right? I mean, it was a real sort of, everyone was paying attention. He gave his views and his views were voted down. But it's so subject to sort of demagoguery as well as misunderstanding that maybe you can't go there, but they're very impoverished affairs, and you just don't learn that much about about the candidates from the actual hearings, only very little. So, and in that sense, it also held true. And a perfect world, it wouldn't be like that. But man, is that not our world?
Yeah, exactly. Let me ask you to measure out your cornstarch and add it to the mixture, right? You need 1.5 tablespoons of cornstarch.
And then we're adding to what exactly?
You're going to add it to the egg yolks.
The egg yolks. So the 4 separated egg yolks, put 1.5 tablespoons of cornstarch in, correct?
Correct.
By the way, things like cornstarch and baking soda, so frequently you're putting in, 3 grains. And A, it makes me think like, I better be damn precise. But B, it makes me think like, is this really having an effect? What's the deal here? And I guess the answer is yes, but what's the deal here, Marissa?
You'll see when we do the egg whites that you toss in literally, and almost every souffle recipe reads this way, a pinch of cream of tartar and a pinch of salt. And
so it looks like I don't have 1/2 tablespoon, so I should do 1.5 teaspoons or just 1/2 tablespoon. Yeah. Okay. All right, I'm listening. Right. Sorry, go ahead.
And there are people like Molly Katzen who voice ring in my ear who are like, don't just say a pinch. Nobody knows. Everybody's pinch is different. And I think the point here is that cream of tartar, you just need a pinch no matter what size pinch it is, as long as you're not like the Jolly Green Giant. Yeah. And you make it, and the cream of tartar is going to help to stabilize it. And you only need a little bit to do that. So your pinch, pinch.
But that really is a pinch. But like, what about, 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda? Really?
That is measured.
You wanted A, to be exact, and B, it's doing something there that if you don't have baking soda, you better go to the grocery store.
That's exactly right. So if you have a recipe for something like a cake and it says you need baking powder and baking soda, and you're like, well, I don't really have the baking soda. Does it matter? It does matter because the baking soda is there to counteract the acid in the baked good so that it will rise properly.
And what about the baking powder then?
Baking powder is double acting. So it starts to work when it's uncooked, and then it also reacts to the heat in the oven.
But what's its impact? So if baking soda counteracts the acid, what does baking powder do?
It keeps it basic. It keeps it.
Basic as in 11th grade chemistry. Okay. All right.
And someday I'll talk about my 11th grade chemistry teacher and why she was really the meanest person ever in the history of the world. And anyway.
And when you get one of those, I'm assuming it can change your life. I didn't have one. Go ahead.
You're going to whip your your egg yolks with the sugar, right? And
I'm going to whip them. You mean with a whisk? I'm going to whisk them. I'm not going to.
No.
Okay.
Nope. You can use your zuzzer, but you're going to need it later for more important things.
Well, I have a fairly small bowl here, so I'd rather do this. So I just need to homogenize them or whatever, right?
No, you actually need to make them lighter in color.
I do have to create body, huh? Well,
yeah, you'll get there.
And even when you see the small bowl I'm using,
I know it does make it a little.
It's okay.
But what you're gonna?
No, but I mean it's okay for what I need to do. Like I wouldn't whip the egg whites in there because they'll, grow exponentially.
You might want to. In your case, we're going to end up adding it to your big bowl.
But so can you tell me when?
You're not there yet. Okay. The real thing that a lot of recipes will say this, they're like, oh, whip it until it's lighter in color. And they really mean it. And if you stick around long enough whipping it, you're going to see it turns a beautiful
lemon yellow kind of.
Yeah. It's like cool. the perfect color for like April.
Well, I'll do it and switch arms and we can talk as I do it.
Sure. So, there was so much going on legally in the world this week. I kind of wanted to just do like a lightning round with you and just name things and see like almost, what the first thing comes to your mind is. But I'm going to ask a question before I do that.
Yeah.
Which is to my little old mind here as a gal who,
just a little baking gal from New Jersey. What do you know? Okay.
I know. Little old me. My brother got all the brains. Blink, blink. Anyway, no, you didn't, David. Anyway, it doesn't matter how old we are. We still fight like we're children. Even though he's much older than I am.
Lucky you. I'm really hoping my kids just are hanging and talking and fighting or whatever when they're older.
Me too.
Okay.
So
anyway,
I have this. My gut feeling is that there are more notable, newsworthy lawsuits and legal things going on in the news than ever before. In the past 5, 6, 7 years. Is that true, or is it just because MSNBC and CNN are hiring more legal experts?
No, it's a great question. It sure seems like it to me. I have completely stumbled into I do different stuff. I still practice law a little, but this whole punditry thing, just way back when I wrote a couple op-eds and they were hungry for content. And, next thing I knew, I was on television of all things. And and prosecutors were sort of what journalists had been in Watergate. But once you're in that role, you find it doesn't stop. Obviously, there's always so much law in this country. If I can get, a feat, there's de Tocqueville says in mid 1900s, every social dispute turns into a legal dispute in the USA, which was, not the case in France. And we've looked to the laws, but it just seems to me that the whole Trump era has brought on cases of such moment, and the general role of the courts that has, come about, but only in the last 50, 60 years, I'd say, since the civil rights era, of being the final arbiters, moral questions, and so everything. You combine that with a serial lawbreaker like the 45th president, and and add in the difficulties of trying to get to the bottom of stuff because he's a serial lawbreaker. And you get a lot of lawyers on MSNBC and CNN. So it feels to me, I never really gauged it before, and I've only been doing this sort of stuff in the very period you identify. But it feels to me intensely legal.
Donald Trump just wasn't a lawbreaker; he was a law abuser. In a sense that I can't have this my way. I'm going to go to the next court up, the next court up, the next.
That's right, and that each of those is law stuff. Okay, is that a crime on the 6th? How do we get this information that he just won't give to us and a normal president would? It's, look, his whole MO from his whole sleazy career has been basically sue me. Force the operation of the legal system, put up all these obstacles. We've seen in the last 5 or 6 years also a lot of the real limitations of the legal system. The wheels of justice grind slowly. And, he's exploited that. And that itself has been kind of a story. So it's just, law all the way down.
I think your mixture is a beautiful yellow color.
It is. It's really pretty. Okay.
And now add that into your delightful
half a cup of raspberry.
Yeah, whatever is in that. Yeah, your half a cup of raspberry, but it's in the big bowl right now, isn't it?
That's right.
So this mixture looks really gross for a little bit.
No,
it starts to get.
No, it's beautiful.
Oh, okay, good. Because it sort of breaks the minute you put it in, but it shouldn't. Just whisk it all up so it.
Wait, I'm sorry. Whisk up the mixture.
Yeah, whisk it together.
Because I sort of smushed it together, but I'll whisk it now. It's that pivotal moment, isn't it?
It's that pivotal moment. It's the moment when, so you've mixed it all together, correct? Now, the thing I'd like to do is we need to butter and sugar your.
So you want me to butter and sugar 4 ramekins. Why in the world would you think I would have 4 ramekins around? Who has 4 ramekins?
To be honest, I don't. I only have 2 little ones and 1 large one.
And 1 large one. So
do it. You can do with it what you.
Well, it so happens I do have 4 ramekins.
There you go.
It just so happens. I checked.
A scholar, a gentleman, and a ramekin owner. That's what they say about Harry Litman.
1, 2, 3, 4. They're pretty little. All right. And you want them all buttered and sugared?
Yep, buttered and sugar.
Or that coconut sugar?
If you want to, that's up to you. Some people say it's a little better for you. I'm not necessarily.
Now I wanna let you know. I mean, you can see this maybe. They're not the red ones are a little. I would say maybe 7 ounces and 5 or 6 or something. Is that okay?
That's fine. The key to filling up the souffle container is only to fill it up 3/4 of the way. So it doesn't matter the size.
Although now we're going to have, this is interesting. It's kind of like hedging bets, right? Because we're going to have 4 chances to fall up to the souffle, but 4 chances to rise. Yeah.
Exactly. And 4 chances to call everybody in your house to the kitchen so they can eat them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We have no problem with not pretty, tasty things. That's kind of a daily fare around here.
And I think if you and I do this properly, we can make this podcast last for 7 hours and 15 minutes. Then people will know what happened to those 7 hours and 15 minutes. He might have been making soufflés with friends.
Yeah, no, but except it'll just be silent, and then we'll say, voila, goodbye. See you next week on The Secret Life of Cookies.
Exactly. What are you...
honest to God, though, I mean, that is friggin' outrageous. It's weird even to compare it to the Nixon stuff because...
It's so strange to me because they say, well, it was only 18. Nixon did have those 18 minutes. And I'm like, 18? This is 7 hours and 18 minutes, basically.
Well, but it's more than that because those were all right. Now he's got to produce the smoking gun. It's actually John Dean, his latest book. There's all this stuff. Watergate happens. There's, total paroxysms and he's gone. And then the sort of scholarship kind of ends, except the tapes are still available, et cetera. Anyway, people go back, and he went back, having participated in some, and his book, The Best Defense, or something like that, has a really interesting theory of the 18 minutes. And I don't know if you remember the ridiculous picture of Rosemary Woods doing these like calisthenics and stuff. Yes. But why they did it, it's real. But anyway, it was after. This is a guy who sets out to, so obviously, to, break the law and go dark for this whole period. Exactly so the illegal thing can happen, which is, and he can be without accountability. It's not just that it's 25 times as long, it's that it's so much more nefarious and criminal. Boy, I'll tell you, these last few years have been great for Richard Nixon, haven't they? I mean, he's never looked so good. He was actually the statesman who didn't want to put the country through terrible, actually resigned, or it would have been terrible for the country. I think that at least was part of what he was doing.
Yep. You greased the sides of your ramekin.
No, I'm trying to. I didn't do a very good job of that, so I'm putting in more sugar for that reason.
The sugar helps the souffle climb up the walls of the ramekin.
Right.
Yeah, it takes a little bit of cheek, not that to hand in all your records and not hand in the 7 hours of things were going on. I would. No.
I don't think we think he didn't hand. I think we think he specifically acted. This itself is a violation on its own, but in order not to have records created, right? He's there having his crony Scavino, give him a burner phone, which is like what drug dealers use, in order that there be no log. Not, he didn't then suppress the law. You can't. In general, I think about this. Something I sort of learned as a prosecutor. What about nasty people just not producing documents, et cetera? It's really hard to do. Almost everything has, 10 copies. So it would be very hard to get rid of a log. But so it's not, he just didn't create one. It's so bad. Okay. Anyway, I think it's kind of up the sides, not so, not 100%, but I think about up your 3/4 sides here.
Okay. Let's see what happens. You need to, you've mixed everything together, right? And you need to
I'm looking frighteningly at this pallid yellow-white egg whites that I know I have a date with very soon, but otherwise things are mixed together.
Let's start dating them now. Okay. Introduce yourself to the egg whites. Put them into a bowl that you can mix them with.
You're looking plenty pale today, may I say. All right, so exactly. We want a big bowl.
Yeah, and maybe something like, ooh, you have a lovely mucousy complexion or something like that.
And this is the one thing I checked, right? Do you or don't you, when you gave me the recipe, have cream of tartar? And that's something that if you have it, nobody knows it. But you might have it. You just might have it. And it turns out you do. I think the last time this has been cracked might have been before the Trump presidency.
Absolutely.
But I've got it.
You've got it. And let me just say, and we'll add that in, not immediately. We'll add it in after we've started whipping it a bit. But the thing about cream of tartar, because I've once tested 12 or something different snickerdoodle recipes, and cream of tartar is the one ingredient that always goes in snickerdoodles because it adds a tartness to it.
Yeah.
I wrote in this snickerdoodle recipe, which came in second in some award, I don't remember, as being one of the best cookies ever. Everybody somewhere in a cupboard has a container of cream of tartar.
Right.
Even if you bought it during the Nixon administration, there will always be a cream of tartar somewhere. It just appears. I don't know how.
So part of what you do professionally is you'll do these experiments with 10 different tries, and let's do it. This one with turning the oven down and do it. Oh, that's really fun. Like
it is really fun.
Like the test kitchen that Cooks does, huh? That's cool. Okay.
Exactly. I have very happy neighbors.
Oh, right.
Let me, right? I literally had to call one of my neighbors today. I was like, can you get over here right now for the souffle? And she came running over. It was a great neighborhood. I would set up your mixer so that you can now beat the daylights into your egg whites. He is going to use a hand mixer. To all our friends at home, he is using a hand mixer. I remember our first hand mixer we got with green stamps. Yes.
I'm set up. So it's poised over the whites.
He is poised over the whites. I'm going to tell you what to do is you need to whip it until it is just beginning to turn a little bit white. And then you're going to, on a low speed, and then you're going to throw in a pinch of cream of tartar and a pinch of salt. Then you're going to take it up to a high speed and whip it until it's at soft peaks, and then talk to me.
It's slightly glossy, but definitely stiff.
That slightly glossy is great. You want it to be glossy.
Okay, so this is okay. Or you want me to do the test in front of you?
I'd like to see the test. And they didn't slide out either. That looks great and stiff. That's great. Okay. It's holding its own. It's not falling off. We're going to fold in the egg whites. We're going to add.
Okay, and we're going to do it now?
Yeah, but we're not going to.
I know this is where the pivotal anxious moment, but I've just always kind of also pretended there's not much to it and just kind of done it.
But I don't want you to add all the egg whites at once.
Yes, of course.
Take a spoonful of them.
Bien entendu. Okay, so like about a quarter, no?
I would actually only do like a spoonful, like a.
Oh, really? But you want me to try to do that folding deal?
Nope.
Right?
Not at all. You don't have to fold it.
Oh, I don't have to fold it? All right, so I put in a spoonful, and now what do I do?
Just mix it around a little so that it lightens the mixture, so that once you add the egg whites in there, it's not like doesn't weigh down upon.
But you add I just added the egg whites, a quarter of them. Okay, I mean a spoonful.
Just a quarter of them. Yep, and mix it about.
Mix it about. Don't have to fold. Okay. Wow.
But then we'll get to the folding, and folding is really quite fun, especially when you have a bright color to deal with. To blend your colors together.
Now I have little chunkolas of egg whites, but that's fine, right? I stop now.
Yeah, the chunkolas are fine. Yeah, you can slice your chunkolas. I got a few of those, and now we're going to add. This is my favorite part of the whole thing is just when you have these beautiful stiff egg whites, they slide out of the bowl and lay on top.
So you can do them all in there now.
That's right. And now we're going to do the full part.
All right. I see what you're. Oh, all right. So you gave me a break, but just for that first spoonful. I see.
Just the first spoonful. But folding
I thought you were all like modern and folding is so 20th century, but apparently not. Okay. I'm ready.
Exactly.
So you want me to try to fold now?
Yeah, but the first thing you do is you cut through the middle, scraping up from the bottom, and flip over the top, and turning the bowl a quarter turn each time. Can you see what I'm doing? Let me show you. Watch this. Through the middle, over the top, and turn. Through the middle, over the top.
I do see that.
Around the sides, through the middle, and turn. And anybody who'd like, we'll be selling a tape of me telling you how to fold your whites in the lobby after the show. Speaking of something that could curdle my eggs, I'll try my lightning round with just one name for you. Ginni Thomas, go.
I said this on TV. I shouldn't have, but it is the first word that comes to me. Lunatic. And it was valid, lunatic. And the problem is, I think, first, just let me ask you, how do I know, I'm not seeing too much white now, and I want to stop before I do too much of this, right?
That's exactly correct. Right. Okay. You don't want.
So let me show it to you, and you tell me, and then we'll talk, Ginni.
That looks good. I would fold it in a little more. It should look a little more like.
So, look, all this stuff about recusal would be the same were she simply a good old-fashioned political partisan, and even he were too. And then you would just say, well, that kind of goes with the territory. And of course, but the game changer to me is she believes ardently in the big lie. More than that, specific parts of it that are totally made up, like the watermark, one of several myths. She's got this Manichaean view that the other side are not just mistaken, but evil, and are going to be, tied to wharfs off of Guantanamo. She's she's got the mindset almost of a Proud Boy, and so the big worry. Yes, I think there are cases. So everyone's straining to find how how Thomas's participation could run afoul of the recusal. Actually, I'm not playing lightning round, am I? You just want some quick word, or should I keep going?
No, you can keep going. Please keep going.
So let me ask you to find how something he would say, could actually concern her, and so could substantially affect her in the words of the law, which of course is problematic for starters, because only with Supreme Court he gets to decide what how to apply it to himself, which is not what we normally think of as law. But, you can come up with scenarios. But to me, the bigger worry is they have always talked about themselves as best friends. He, in very poor taste, just after he was confirmed, had that big People magazine cover piece, "We Pray a Lot." And they're, to the extent he is not just a conservative person who wants the Republican candidate to win, but is somehow actually among the 40% of the country that's dangerously deluded. So to the extent that he's actually part of the 40% of the country that believes patently false things and has this view of the other 60% as being dangerous and deluded, and all the things that's what really afflicts the country and makes us in such woeful shape. And if a justice on the Supreme Court is starting with it, now again, just that she has that view doesn't mean he does. But on the other hand, that's, to me, the big concern is, holy cow, it's like you get right up there trying and up the court, and here's a guy in robes believing absolutely deluded and dangerous fiction. That's the bad thing. Now herself, I think she is really icky. I'm thinking of the phone call she made just a couple years ago asking Anita Hill to apologize, and her whole kind of viewpoint. She is, I think, for reasons that go beyond her politics, just, such a warrior and so, a bad kind of partisan.
she's part of a cult, really. And even if you go back to her childhood,
and she wouldn't have to be, right? I have a few friends. I always ask anybody I know, and there aren't that many, and I know a lot of Republicans, if they're for Trump, why they're for Trump. And we don't have to go into it now, but you can construct an argument. This is not it. This is like what you have to get past to be for Trump, that, he's actually engendered this unbelievable state of affairs where you have not just polarization on the lines of truth and falsity. And so we can't even agree on facts. And that is a really degraded political system. And it's, thank you very much, Donald Trump. It's you did most of it.
Most of the damage. Before there is damage to your souffle, I'd like you to I'm going to cook off 2 of them. Why don't you fill up your ramekins with
it's time to fill up the ramekins about 3/4 each. And is there any delicate thing to this or implement to this? No, right? Yes.
No, I wouldn't swap them in there from across the room.
I'm taking the spatula and I'm just gently, sliding it in.
Try and drop it into the middle of the souffle cup.
Oh, I see. So maybe the spatula is the wrong tool. Maybe I want a big spoon.
A big spoon might do. And then you're going to want to smooth the top and wipe off any edges that have gotten before.
Wipe off what?
You'll want to wipe off if some of the souffle mixture gets onto the top 1/4.
I see.
You want to wipe it off. You want it to look clean.
Okay, let me first fill. You know what? I've got too much souffle for 4 ramekins.
I know. Try not to.
Can I keep it with egg whites? Will it work to keep it till tonight and make it then?
You can try it. Yes, it should work.
It should work. Okay.
And try not to bang it about because you have all those lovely air bubbles in there.
Yeah, good point.
It is the most beautiful substance to work with, isn't it? It's just happy.
You know what it's sort of like? You remember as a kid first being on a plane and looking down on the clouds and thinking you could just bounce on them and stuff. It's a little like that.
It's a really good point. Speaking of Ginni Thomas and how Donald Trump has completely corrupted our way of thinking. We still haven't gotten to the point where it's clear to the 1/3 of the population, I don't know, all the Trump supporters, that he isn't allowed to overturn the election results. And I think that should be a large concern for many of us. And I think that's why you see so many of us mouth-breathing liberals, like myself, so concerned with nothing happening in the Merrick Garland case with Merrick Garland, right? Yeah. We there will never be justice. What's January 6th actually doing? And if I had to bet what the most frequently asked question to you, when you're in the supermarket is, or your friends see you for drinks, is oh my God, what's going on? Is Merrick Garland ever going to do anything? Is that the most asked question?
I think that's right. The most asked now. Although, on the premise, how many times? Well, Access Hollywood tape. Now, John McCain comment. Now he's done. Could he get convicted? And truth has been stranger than fiction for many years. But leaving that aside, so
yeah.
Look, I worked closely with Merrick Garland. I spent a lot of time at the Department of Justice. Not that it gives me that great a vantage point, because this really is unique almost in American history, and there's a lot going on the other side that I think basically is, about what's best for the country and the sort of thing that we need a president to decide. But so that would weigh in. I have finally and slowly, slower than my colleagues, come around to the view that there's nothing worse than prosecuting Trump except not prosecuting him. It's just so, and this latest revelation, this gap, we've become inured to his lawbreaking. This is really brazen criminal behavior. All right. But anyway, so back to the department. Question one is, were they, he said on January 5th, we're going to go look at everything. I don't have much doubt of that, but I don't have doubt of that. But question one, are they doing anything yet? And they certainly could be. My best guess is no. They're incredibly disciplined and professional, and Merrick Garland is the real deal any way you slice it. And so things wouldn't leak from the DOJ, but there was anything serious going on with investigations that touched on any real witnesses, we would know because the defendants would say so, or there'd be different ways where things were leaked. So I think it hasn't started. And I think that's pretty bad because in any state of affairs, it's going to be a long-standing process to actually reach a principled and comprehensive decision on whether to indict Trump. And, you need to go up the ladder and try to get, leverage on people, as we've seen them do in the textbook way in the investigation itself. So, for instance, the Congress holds Scavino in contempt on Monday. I think he is in contempt.
Yep.
And I think they'll probably, there's some issues because he is a close associate of, maybe there'll be some things to litigate. But at the end of the day, I think he's probably decided this guy was a caddy who Trump said, he was literally a caddy. That's how he became the deputy chief of staff. Trump is totally his whole world. I think he's ready to do a year or 9 months for Donald Trump. You want him, if it's possible and fair, to be looking at 15 years. And, you need to be investigating all around. He could easily be a target in a conspiracy proceeding that would be for that kind of time. And there's so many steps to do in order to reach a professional decision on Trump himself with all the complications that entails. And as best I can tell, they're not even in square one. So that's problematic. And the question that I most get is, where are they? And I think the answer honestly is not at square one. Or at square zero. They got a lot on their hands, of course, but nevertheless, Merrick is clearly focused on this, and there's a cost to having it, not be really worked well all this time. So. All right, I've done my best to kind of smooth out the, first, did I fully answer your question?
Yes, you did fully answer my question, except for the part where I get concerned about the fact that they're not at square one or square zero, and how they'll be able to do that in the time Can you please put your ramekins onto a baking sheet so it's easier for you, and then pop them in the oven. I'm popping mine in the oven now.
I typically put aluminum foil on the baking sheet just to avoid messing. No reason not to do that, right?
There is no reason not to do that. Absolutely. Go for it. You started at 400 and you take it down to 375. I have to say that his soufflés are lovely, a pink color, while mine are not. Mine are lovely in yellow.
They're now in the oven, and the oven has now been changed to 375.
That's correct. And it really should only take about 12 minutes.
So I'll just ask you one more cooking question. We're waiting for 12 minutes. Are you timing that, or am I?
I'm timing it.
Okay. And this guy, just leave as is, or put it in a smaller thing to repeat the process at night?
Yeah, I would put it in a completely prepared thing.
Oh, but so look, that would require 5 and 6 ramekins. Who do you think I am?
King Ramekin of Egypt. Do you have a smaller souffle dish like that? Like you might maybe. I
have a bigger, like a full size one.
Yeah.
You mean, do I have a medium souffle dish? Is that really what you're asking me?
Sort of.
Along with, I'll just put it right next to the sous vide in the cupboard. Is that what you mean?
Uh-huh.
I do not. I lent out my medium souffle dish.
All right, fine.
But I see what you mean. I can, it's not so small.
I mean, you know what you can do?
I mean, it's not so big. And actually, come to think of it, there's no reason if the whole thing rose to this level, so what?
It's family, your family. Exactly.
Okay. All right. I will do that. And then I just cover it and back to the 375 for 12 minutes, even though it's been in the refrigerator.
No, that'll probably be a little bit longer because it's bigger. So it'd probably be like 16 minutes, 15 or 16 minutes.
And what about that it's been in the refrigerator since from now to then, which is where it should be, right?
It should be, yeah, because of those eggs.
All right. 10 minutes. All yours.
Okay. This is really just for me, and it may not even end up in it, but how are we just at square zero? How are we just at square one? How is anything ever going to happen? And if I sound a bit plaintive or whiny, it's because I feel that way. You are,
yeah. So first, let me say, I do have total confidence in and respect for Merrick Garland and the people around him. So that if you want to be buoyed somewhat, that's for starters. Although second, I do think he came into office thinking that even though he's not making political decisions, thinking that Biden, whom he works for, and maybe the country didn't have a big appetite for, look, there were crimes that Mueller outlined in his report that the statute of limitations is about to run for, meaning they won't be doable anymore. And I think he had pretty well decided not to do those. And that already involves a kind of, exercise of discretion on sort of grand terms. When do we do a former president? It's never been done, et cetera. Then, thereafter, though,
Can I interrupt for 1 second? I hear that argument a lot. Oh, we have to decide whether or not, we really can do this sort of these legal proceedings against a former president, right? That's raised a lot. That's used a lot.
Yeah.
But we've not had a former president who broke the laws so egregiously. So for us,
and widely and brazenly, exactly. And this is how I've come to this position of, the worst thing other than everything else. But people shouldn't too lightly dismiss. Look at the things that you ever heard of the concept of a pre-mortem? You're deciding whether to make a decision, so you assume it goes awry and you figure out what happened. There are things that could go really awry, and in a way that would be toxic and difficult for the country, or more narrowly would be hugely distracting for the administration. So all I want to say is, there are a lot of people, understandably, just want to see him in the orange jumpsuit with the hair askew. What the hell would that look like, actually? But
no.
It's not a small matter. Look, all the reasons. I was around then. Maybe you were around then for, in 74 when Ford pardoned Nixon and people were upset. And yet I think the verdict of history was probably the right thing. There are inevitably issues having to do with the, good of the country in prosecuting. And it really is a Rubicon. Other countries have crossed it, like, Israel, and still maintain a solid rule of law. But we do see this sort of criminal prosecution of former political officials as being a kind of a hallmark of a banana republic. There's just a lot involved, but none of that at this point, given the brazenness and egregiousness, justifies not thoroughly investigating more than they are. So I can say that, point one is I do have a lot of confidence in him. Point two is I do think he sees this welter of consideration, and he also sees even more narrowly I'm feel fairly certain that no one in the White House is trying to tell him what to do, but that he intuits that the White House feels like it needs this like a hole in the head to have a prosecution. Of course, again, that shouldn't be definitive. All of it are things that you could justifiably take into consideration, where you would in other cases, before pulling the trigger on an indictment of Trump. But at this point, I don't see the argument for not really pursuing a serious investigation. And there must be some sense. He is I think, a conservative person, not in normal capital C time, but a prudent, thoughtful prosecutor. And there's some sense that I don't fully appreciate about what it means to set out on that road. To me, you should be setting out on that road, because even if you take the view ultimately that at the end of the day, there's reason to stay your hand against Trump, it doesn't apply to the Steve Bannons and the Dan Scavinos and the Mark Meadows of the world. And that's the path you would be on anyway, that would culminate with a prosecution of Trump. So that, to me, except that I kind of see him as walking on water. So which just makes me just want to think twice and 3 and 4 times before faulting him, because it's a serious fault. That's all I really got for you as an ad hominem argument. It seems to me the department really ought to be looking at this very hard. There's one final point, which is, as a practical matter, doing an active investigation at the same time as the January 6th committee is doing its work can, in fact, pose legal and practical problems. And the January 6th committee is turning up a lot of stuff for all the non-cooperation. They've had 750 people cooperate, et cetera. He might have made a decision that he hasn't communicated, that first let them do their stuff, which is better for legal reasons, and then inherit it. I would need to know more before concluding that was a smart thing to do, but possibly that's figuring in there. If it's simply that we may not want to do it at the end, so we shouldn't start, I think that would be a fairly grievous mistake.
That I appreciate how thoughtful your argument is, because it gives me, especially remembering that January 6th Commission is really working on a lot of stuff and turning up a lot of stuff, and the kind of mayhem that mayhem's the wrong word, but
they're getting, they're really, getting their nose thumbed at in a way that it wouldn't happen with DOJ and wouldn't happen when you're looking at 15 years rather than maybe 1.
Right. There are people, I don't have to show up. I don't have to be, who would turn down a subpoena?
That's a Trump invention, basically. There used to be a little bit of intransigence and then negotiation. He was just like, I have no legal basis not to. And same with my buddies here, but we're just not gonna, because it's gonna take too long. That's a lawless bad guy.
Yes. To the people at home, he mouthed a different word. I'm going to peek in my oven. Hold on. I'm going to check the smaller ones and see how they're doing.
And what you're looking at is the really critical period now at the end in the oven, or is it after you take it out that it's most likely to fall if it falls?
It's going to fall no matter what. But right now, my little ones, I'm taking them out because they have no jiggle to them. If you overcook them, which these almost look like they were about to do, they will crash in the oven. If you undercook them, they will be too soupy. And that's why people get all concerned.
I see.
I think that my egg whites broke a little bit, so it didn't rise as high as they could have. But
because they broke a little bit. What do you mean by that?
Because I beat my egg whites before I got onto this call.
Oh, I see what you mean. So and
then I had to beat them again. But if you look at this, it's just separated from the walls. It should have risen higher, but you see it has just a little big, but the whole thing jiggles, not the middle. The whole thing jiggles.
Which is what you want. And let me ask a possibly heretical question, but okay, so I take it out now and it looks kind of okay. And now you want to eat it piping hot. But what if I just leave it and at dinner I nuke it? Will it be like a sculpture, or will it at least have a good taste?
I wouldn't nuke it. I would let it cool and refrigerate it, and it's going to taste. The problem with
eat it cold. Eat it cold.
Yeah, but the problem is it might end up tasting a little eggy.
Yeah.
That's just my concern. And it's going to completely collapse. Mine has.
Yeah. No, I'm just wondering what to do. I don't feel like having 4 raspberry soufflés right now for, it's still before noon where I am. Yeah. Oh, you're tasting it.
I'm going to taste mine. The nice thing about this recipe is it creates a little bit of, almost a little bit of sauce at the end. I don't know if you can tell the
love
difference
it. No,
in
I
color,
do.
But
I love
nice
that part of
color.
a chocolate souffle. My mom made a mean chocolate souffle. My mom was a great baker, actually.
My mother made me a chocolate souffle once. My greatest memory of a souffle, I mean, aside from like fancy restaurants, is one night, like my father was on a trip and it was just me. Did I mention my brothers are much older than I am? It was just me and my mom.
You have the kind of not so smart one that you have to be nice to.
Yeah, that one. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And we're talking about David, Paul. I have two brothers. My mother made like this classic meal for my house, which was hot dogs and frozen sliced French green beans, right? Right? And that
Beautiful.
was, so we had green beans.
Garlic
so
bread with
like
Lawry's garlic stuff on it. Remember that? Okay. Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah, no,
Chicken pot pie.
That
okay.
One. Yeah. But that was the meal. And my mother's like, but we're going to have a great dessert. And you can still see the fingerprints. I have my mother's joy of cooking and you can see the chocolate fingerprint. And we sat there and she made them and then we sat there and we ate them. And what a fabulous memory. So I think everyone should be.
Hey, by the way, so I'm thinking I'm over 12 minutes. Should I take them out? You want me to take them out and try to jiggle or I got to take them out to try to jiggle, no?
Well, you can nudge them with your
okay, I see what you mean anyway. Okay. Wow.
Is it magic? Those are gorgeous.
I'm
absolutely
stunned.
Gorgeous. Oh my gosh.
How'd that happen?
I can do a screen.
All right. Now I do have to have one. So what? I just take one.
You do.
Just eat the hell out of it. That's the next step here. As opposed to a little taste. Wow.
Yeah,
I am so surprised and impressed.
I want to know what the coconut sugar tasted like.
Is it going to be a little liquidy? Let's see.
It looks like it's risen beautifully.
It really has risen. I would say, 30 seconds ago, maybe even, but man.
Okay, better. Okay. It's going to be hot.
Yeah. Now, interestingly, it's not very sweet. I get it. Maybe the coconut sugar is less sweet. Is that? Do people say that? I don't know.
I wouldn't say that necessarily, but I would say that you have a lot of tartness in it. You have the tart lemon sugar
from the zest in with
orange zest. I mean, the lemon zest. Raspberries are very tart, and it makes is it fruity enough?
It is. That's what it really is. It's really raspberry-ish.
I'm eating an orange one, and it's like orange sunshine. So,
yeah. And if I just leave these here so they're room temperature, that's the best thing to do. For my kids to have them tonight,
I would let them cool down.
Yeah,
but only for about half an hour or so, and then put them in the fridge.
And then so they'll be cold, hot raspberry souffle, and
yeah,
still fruity.
Formerly hot. It'll be the souffle formerly known as hot.
Is formerly known as hot soufflés. Yeah. Okay. I what do you think? What percentage of your viewership are you thinking is going to get that joke?
I think
high, right? You have a very sophisticated listenership.
I totally think they'll get it. Okay, there's a cage match. Ted Cruz, Josh Hawley, who wins?
Yeah. I that's one of those things. Normally, when my wife's a jiu-jitsu champion, it gets to like tapping because otherwise they're going to bring. I want this to be a double tap. It's hard to sort of imagine how, but like both of them, if they don't stop. But if I have to go conventional, I think I'm rooting for Hawley just because Cruz is besides despicable, he's so dangerous. I mean, this is what actually did come out this week. He had in mind. He was the step ahead, what they might be trying for 2024, which is don't have Pence. Pence won't do this. Just delay and chaos and see what happens. And that would have been, so he is dastardly. I've known people whose paths he crossed, in college and stuff. He seems to be a man who nobody has ever ever liked. That there's something deep in your soul about that. He clerked to the Supreme Court. He seemed there to have been a man nobody ever liked. He's a sick guy, I think.
Yeah,
and
I
Holly,
think there's something in there.
I don't know. Holly Cotton, Blackburn, their performances were dismal, but yeah, nothing bad happened to them, but just a little vaporizing kind of thing. I'd go for Cruz.
All right. Okay.
Yourself?
I would go for Cruz too, because I just think he would play dastardly, and Holly would be like, "No, this hurts."
He's more worrisome. Yeah.
So you'll have to pick the next interesting, exciting dessert to do, and then we can come on and talk about John Eastman.
Excellent.
We really don't even have time to do that. Thank you so much for coming on.
My pleasure. Really, my pleasure.
Thank you so much for tuning into this very special episode. You can find a recipe for my beginner souffle on my Substack at marissarodekopf.substack.com. And of course, Harry Litman can be found wherever there are fine legal opinions and on the Talking Feds podcast. Thanks so much. See you next week. Have a great week.
USAA knows dynamic duos can save the day, like superheroes and sidekicks or auto and home insurance. With USAA, you can bundle your auto and home and save up to 10%. Tap the banner to learn more and get a quote at USAA.com/bundle. Restrictions apply.